I joined my first game jam and made a game in 7 days, and it was the worst. I had just released my first FPS game, Blue, and wasn't really sure on what I should be doing next. That's when my friend messaged me. Long story short, I was forced to join a game jam. The funny thing about this is that my friend never completed the jam, he failed to submit a project. Let's give a big round of applause for his bravery and enthusiasm. By the way, go check out his channel. He just hit 100 subscribers and his content is pretty good. Everyone's favorite encyclopedia defines Game Jam as a contest where participants try to make a video game from scratch. Depending on the format, participants might work independently or in teams. The contestant duration usually ranges from 24 to 72 hours. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I joined the Spooktober 2021 Jam. This was a 7-day jam with the theme Sacrifice. I started off with first creating a new project. Obviously, the idea that I had for my game was that it's a dungeon platformer game, where in order to proceed to the next dungeon, you have to sacrifice some of your stats. Making the dungeon generation wasn't so difficult. There was a really good tutorial by Blackthorn Prod where he explained everything step by step, and it was exactly what I wanted. So now a random dungeon will generate every single time you play. I had never made a 2D platformer game before, so getting the movement right was a bit tricky. I spent many hours trying to perfect it, and the outcome was fruitful. And the player can also dash now, which it's pretty neat. After that, I decided to draw a character because every other 2D game I've made before used just squares and circles. Let me just say that this was a big mistake. Art is definitely not my cup of tea. I honestly suck at it. Look at this horrible creature. Even in your worst nightmares, he does not exist. I wasted pretty much the rest of the day trying to draw a good character and failed horribly. So by the end of day 1, I had a somewhat working dungeon and a player who can move and dash. I started off day 2 with creating some juicy animations for the player, because right now we have a square just moving around lifeless. I created an animation each for jumping, dashing, landing, and even an idle animation, and this definitely gave life to the player. Now what's missing is some sort of an attack. I initially gave him a melee attack, but I didn't quite like the feel of it. So I spent a few hours trying out a few ideas until I had a unique form of attack. Eventually, I stuck with this very cool idea I had, where an orb will follow the player around and you can use your mouse to shoot the orb in any direction you want and also call it back whenever you want. This was perfect, exactly what I was going for. I spent the rest of the day perfecting the orb by adding this particle system, and yeah, I'll show you the result of day 2. We've got a very juicy player who can attack. The entirety of day 3 was spent on the dungeon generation. I wasted a lot of time on day 3 because I felt burnt out from the previous day, and I had an early finish for the day. Day 4 was a good day. It was the most productive day out of all the days, because all of the enemies and obstacles were made on day 4. The first enemy I made was this jumping enemy, where if you get close to him, he would jump towards you, and if it hits you, you get hurt. Coding this guy was fun, because I had never done an enemy like this before. Next up, I created this flying enemy where basically it would just move around and reflect off of walls. Yeah, it's pretty basic. Then we've got a shooting enemy where if you come close, yep, you guessed it, they shoot at you. Then we have 2 types of platforms, one that can break and one that cannot. Then I got the idea of creating another platform where when you touch it, it breaks. And obviously, I added lava because every good game has to have lava. You cannot have a good game without lava, it's just not possible. And last but not least, I added spikes, which will instantly kill you. Well, it doesn't function right now, but you get the point. Day 5, I finally got to working on implementing the theme with my game. The basic idea is that in every dungeon you have to find this big red door and you are presented with 2 random choices. And you basically have to make a sacrifice to proceed to the next dungeon. I also added a reward system where if you break a block or kill an enemy, there is a chance you can get a reward which will provide you with a random upgrade. So we've got a basic game loop going on. We've got random dungeon generation, enemies and obstacles, a reward system, and we've got this big red door. We have got a fully functioning game. I spent the rest of the day on the main menu and I didn't think of a good name for the game yet. But I still had 2 more days to go, so it was not on my priority list. Day 6 was a very boring day. I added a tutorial menu with all the basic rules of the game. And then I finally got to adding some sound effects. I used this website called SFXR, which should produce sound effects for you, and after spending what seemed like forever on that site, I got a good set of sounds. And this is what it sounds like after putting everything together. Right now I could submit my game as it is, but I had 1 more day left for the jam to be over. And honestly, I felt there was something missing from the game. There is no end goal. All you need to do is get to the big red door at the end of the dungeon and it's over. I decided that on the final day, I'll create a boss fight. I had never created a boss fight before, so this will be a bit challenging. The idea was that the player will have to pass through 3 dungeons of increasing difficulty before finally reaching the boss. Making the boss was surprisingly not that difficult. After much thought, I came up with 3 different stages for the boss. But before all that, the boss needs a dramatic entrance. So here it is. There were 3 stages of the boss. The first stage was he will just follow you around and try to shoot you down. At this stage, it's relatively easy to attack him. Once his health drops down below a certain percentage, he will start attacking you from the sides with a barrage of bullets. There is a small window of opportunity where he will stay still, but even then, it's still not that difficult to get a hit on him. The final stage of his attack is very cool. Once his health is very low, he will appear right above you and just plummet down onto you and deal massive damage. Coding this stage was a bit difficult, but the end result was very satisfying. And with that, I was done with my very first game jam. And I have to say, I think I did very good. I submitted my project with 6 hours to spare and I felt good about myself. This was definitely very stressful, but it was a good experience and I'm glad I took part. And that will be it from me for this video. Goodbye.